Southward Africa's Financial Secretary Nhlanhla Nene has abandoned following acknowledging meet members of the Gupta household, who include been charged of corrupt practices. CEO Cyril Ramaphosa told he recognized the retire in the interests of nice management. The Guptas include been charged of work in ex-CEO Jacob Zuma to safe by the government contracts and define office serving. Both of the Guptas and Mr. Zuma reject the concoction. Mr. Nene has been replaced by ex-central banking head Tito Mboweni. The is the 5 changing of financial secretary with 2014. Recent 1 week, Mr. Nene said a magistrate-led investigation in the estimated impact of the Guptas, named as the Zondo Committee, on meetings how he had previous rejected. Down there is no proposal how he had made whatever illicit in meet the businessmen for his skimp as vice financial secretary and financial secretary in Mr. Zuma's by the government, but he has been by intensive policy blood pressure to move downward with manufacturing the reception. Mr. Zuma dismissed him as financial secretary in 2015, but he was newly appointed by the present CEO in February. Rumors of his designed retire on Monday led to a drop in the importance of Southward Africa's exchange, the rand, but it has restored its importance. Mr. Nene met the Guptas at their business community and household at low 6 times among 2009 and 2014. On the person of it, a financial secretary speaking to top industry human beings may appear regular, but the Guptas include been charged of with meetings, in their accommodation in a chic outskirts of Johannesburg, to impact policy decisions. Ex-Vice Financial Secretary Msbizi Jonas has said the Zondo Committee how in 2015 he had been proposed 600 meter rand, $41 meter, pound 32 meter, if he recognized the position of Financial Secretary at a meet at the Johannesburg House. The Guptas rejected the statement. Following demonstration the detailed information of his own meetings, Mr. Nene given a social excuse proverb, I am humane too much, I do mistakes, consisting such of impoverished judgment. Mr. Ramaphosa, who became CEO in February, driven Mr. Nene behind in the office in procedure to recover trust in the repute of the nation's economical control. It had acquired a beating by Mr. Zuma's chairmanship. In his speaking receiving the retire, Mr. Ramaphosa told how Mr. Nene had protected the reason of appropriate finance control and pure management. But he had recognized the retire since Mr. Nene afraid his evidence detracted of the essential problem of serving the human beings of Southward Africa as we job to de-establish social confidence in by the government, Mr. Ramaphosa told. Mr. Nene's retire signals a new way of making things in Southward African policy. He bring down on his saber for acknowledging how he had misguided human beings, but his act is wonderful in himself as down there was no testimony of any incorrect making for his meetings in the Guptas. The civilization of resigning is nearly non-existent in Southward Africa, especially among elder policy figures. Human beings expect before they are spurred. Mr. Nene jumped. Down there are lot during the present authority who include made far worse and yet stick on their lightweight jobs. The assignment of Mr. Mboweni, 59, has been wide welcomed. He became Southward Africa's at first dark center banking governor in 1999 and was in the position for 10 years. He was seen as possessing made a nice work, and is deliberate and old and trust brush. The Gupta household relocated to Southward Africa of India in 1993 and began to construct up a industry imperial power in interests in mountain, air journey, power, technique and print. With its riches, the household was charged of owning huge policy and economical impact by the chairmanship of Mr. Zuma in which is named in Southward Africa as country seas. Both of Mr. Zuma and the Gupta household include rejected offense, but the corrupt practices concoction added to a feeling of Southward Africa's decrease by his chairmanship. He obedient as CEO in February and human beings hoped Mr. Ramaphosa could maintenance the harm. On to Southward African print, several of the Guptas now dwell in Dubai. Mr. Ramaphosa's by the government signed an issuance contract in the joint Arabic Emirates in September. the spurred assumption how Southward Africa may try to include them issued one-day investigations in estimated corrupt practices are signed.